So we got through the Victorian age, and we're going to find out that this is when sexual research started. They were very uptight. The women wore dresses that were up to their neck, and they were very long. Then they wore the corsets, and it was thought that women did not have a sex drive. This is where Freud had developed his theory, and no wonder his theory was so like that girls, that girls fell in love with their dad and were envious of his penis. That makes sense for his time period because men had all the rights, as women did not even have the right to vote. So yes, I think if I was a girl in his time period, I would definitely have penis envy, because my only option was to stay at home, take care of the kids, and I didn't even have the right to vote. I wasn't considered like a citizen, like an equal to a man. So yeah, I can see where he'd say I'd have penis envy. So he came up with this theory, and also in his theory he said that women don't have much of a sex drive. He also said a vaginal orgasm was the more mature orgasm. Women that couldn't have a vaginal orgasm were less mature, which we're going to find out. Well, I think we did find that out in the last lecture section. We talked about how the way your clitoris is situated on you has a role in whether or not you can have an orgasm when you're penetrated, because whether or not it's stimulated or not, and there's many different factors, but I don't think it's because we're immature sexually and the vaginal orgasm is more mature. But in any case, I'm trying to show you that his theory, which I'm sure most of you have been exposed to in Psych 1, is kind of a product of his time, because in the 1900s, I'm going to say this segment that I'm working on right now is when women got the most rights. So you're going to see that this is where things started to turn, and I feel, but I could be, maybe a lot of you feel differently, is I feel like we women are more equal. There's a great show on Netflix, I can't explained, I think it's called Explained, and it talks about that the reason why women don't make as much money as men is not so much because of injustice in the system, but it's more that we women end up having to raise the children. We stay at home with the children and take pregnancy leave, and when you average those factors in, then it seems to bring the salaries down. So it's just something interesting to take a look at if you wanted to. It's in the first season of Explained that you can find on Netflix, and they really do a good job in that show. We're showing the scientific research in a digestible way. So anyway, in 1920s, the women got a right to vote. We're going to do, this section is kind of all about the women. Then another huge advance, in fact, I would say the advance that gave women the most rights of all is 1960s, the pill. If a woman gets pregnant, her life is going to change. And we're going to find out that also in 1973, I think is on the next one, is Roe versus Wade, that you have the right to terminate your pregnancy. Once you have a child, your whole life changes. You have to now find a babysitter if you want to work. It's extra money. There's a whole different dynamic to having a child. It's a big deal. It's not a small deal at all. It's a big deal. So when women were given the right to control their sexuality with the pill, that changed everything. See, before men could, the women could ask the men to wear a condom, but still you don't know, did he slip it off when he was inside of you? Did he not, is the condom safe, so on and so forth. But when women now finally had a total, complete control over whether or not they got pregnant or not, this was life-changing. So the number one revolutionary thing for women is not being a prisoner to, with regard to sex, is not being a prisoner to, oh, I could get pregnant from this. Okay, here you go. And then, like I said, oops, sorry, yeah, 1973, I think I said 1973. 1973 was Roe versus Wade. So women have the right to abortion. And now they could decide, if they did happen to get pregnant, they could decide whether or not they want to go through with it or not. Now, again, I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but I also feel like when you take a teacher, I wouldn't think that you would want your teacher just to parrot what the textbook says. And occasionally I think you might want your teacher to put in some food for thought. So I'm going to put some food for thought here. Is right now the way things are is I feel like this right to abortion is definitely female skewed. And I'm just wondering in the future if laws are going to have to change a little bit, like if there's going to have some clauses put in. Because right now, if a woman and a man get pregnant, the woman has the right to say, I am going to have an abortion, and there is nothing that you can do about it. And I'm just not sure if that's 100% fair. Another thing is right now, if a woman gets pregnant out of wedlock and it's the man's baby and she can prove it, he will now be held liable for 18 years. So I don't think this happens too often, but it probably happens a little bit. What if a woman finds a man and knows she's ovulating and says, oh, I'm going to get pregnant with him, and then she holds him accountable for the next 18 years? I just wonder, like, if in the future we might have to put in some legal, something could change. Like, is it 100% a woman's right to have an abortion if the man says that he wants to take care of the baby? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. But I do think that it is my role as a teacher to bring these kind of issues up to allow you to think about them. And even if you have a very, very strong reaction to it, that's fine. I'm just trying to show you some different ways of looking at things. That's the whole point of this history of sex. Okay, let's go to the next one. Here's another thing that I really like. I love that we have gay marriage now, and kind of the forerunner of this all gay marriage thing is the 1969 Stonewall Riot. So it's my understanding that there was a bar in New York City, and it was called the Stonewall Bar, and it was a place where a lot of transvestites, transsexuals, different homosexuals, people with kind of gender diversity stances, that they frequented, and the police would target that bar and would constantly invade that. And finally one day they got tired of it, and they said, we've had it with this. We're going to have a riot. And then by them having this riot, so it got media attention, people started, they said, you're interrogating us, you're targeting us, you're bullying us on this. Something needs to be done differently. And so this got some media attention, and once the media attention puts a kind of a thought in your head, then some research started taking place. And so what they did was they started studying, up until 1973, homosexuality was seen as a mental disorder. And so finally, when they started doing research, hey, are they having mental issues? Are they able to function just as well as someone who's not homosexual? And so after the Stonewall Riot, there started some thinking, some testing, psychology, looking into it. And they're like, no, being homosexual does not indicate of any type of mental illness. So you see that they're able to function well, their relationships are healthy. This definitely needs to be removed from the DSM. I'd like to show you right now a tragedy, a true tragedy in my book from Alan Turing. So he was kind of in this time period, he's an absolute genius, but before that homosexuality was accepted, which, as you know, we did not get the right to be married until the 2000s, it was really frowned upon to be gay and really seen as something that needed to be changed. In California now, it is illegal to do reparative therapy, which is trying to change their orientation. I think you can do it. I think you may be able to try to do it if it's something that you really, really wanted to do, but the APA definitely frowns against this and says it is something that should not be done. So anyway, Alan Turing is a genius of our time, and he was gay, and he decided to do hormone therapy to try to stop acting out on his homosexuality. But here's another controversial area that I get into. I know it offends some of you, but I can't understand how science can offend. The research shows that male and female hormones shape the brain differently, and by him being exposed to all the female hormones as a way to try to get away from his homosexual orientation, it took away his ability to think the way he did before he had the hormone therapy. So in this next video, I'd like to show you the story of Alan Turing and why it's so sad that for a long time so many people who were gay had to feel badly or ashamed about their sexual orientation.